So about 20 years ago, long before I moved here to the Hudson Valley, I lived in Southern California. And I had moved out there in the hopes of selling out. And I was having a hard time finding buyers, though. 20 years ago, I just wanted to be big. I wanted to be famous. I didn't care what it was for. I could be a rock star. I could be a movie star. You know, this was like way before reality television. And I think probably at that time I would have been, okay, stick me in a tank full of leeches. You know, I was what I like to refer to as a hope fiend. You know, I was always hoping something's coming, something good is coming. It's just around the corner. This isn't it now. And I had an opportunity to house sit for Alan Cook, the British film and TV director. And I had an experience that completely transformed my ability to create and my understanding of creativity. And I wanted to share that with you. So Alan had this great house at the very tippy top of the hills of Silver Lake. You know, Silver Lake is just that part of California that reminds you that, you know, it's like on the latitude line of Tuscany, you know, it's just that beautiful feeling of, you know, why it is that Southern California can be so beautiful. And he had this cottage, beautiful little cottage, and this incredible English garden. And if you know much about gardening, you know that the whole idea of an English garden, it sounds like English garden, it sounds like so terribly manicured, in line, but it's not at all. An English garden is really kind of like, you know, it looks like chaos, but like this really beautiful structured chaos. So my job was to just, you know, water his garden. That was pretty much it. I get to stay at this really cool house and water his garden. But he had this library. And I started reading these books from authors I'd never heard of before. D.T. Suzuki and Alan Watts and Carl Jung and all these people. So I started going through this library, and there were some really common themes. It was fascinating. It was this great education for me. And he had this book called Be Here Now by Ram Dass. So some of you read it. It's this very kind of, it's like, you know, it's this weird kind of an acid trip of a book. You know, it's filled with drawings, and it seems like it's a memoir, but it seems almost like a psychic vomit, you know, on page. But it all comes together. And the premise behind it is, it's an invitation to be in the now. And this is years before Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now and all that. And this was a revelation to me. At first, when I started reading it, I was kind of like, how's that supposed to do anything? But the more I started reading this book, I started to get, my chattery mind started getting quieter and quieter. And I finished the book, and it just felt so good to read about being in the now, being here now. So I decided to try this experiment. And it's an experiment that I invite you to try as well. I sat in a chair in the morning, and I closed my eyes, and I conjured up the feeling that I had finally arrived. Like whatever that would mean to you, like you crossed you were successful enough. I imagined that I was rich enough, I was good looking enough, it was all enough. There was nothing missing. And I sat with that feeling for about 10 minutes. And I did it every day for a week. And at about the 6th day, I was out watering the flowers, and something really weird happened. The flowers started doing some weird color thing on me. The orange and the poppies became kind of translucent. And the purples, I could see where the red was happening and the blue was happening at the same time. And I'm looking around, and suddenly what was 2 or 3 different greens were like 50, 60,000 shades of green. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then a really big breeze came up from Los Feliz and up the back of the hill and over the fence. And I could smell eucalyptus. I could identify like about 100 different scents. And I was like, okay, that's, whoa. And then the hose slipped a little bit and started pouring water on my hand. And the feeling of cold water against my fingertips, it was as if I had never felt water in my life. So I'm standing there in this garden, watering these flowers, and, well, I'm tripping. I'm just going, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, people are driving by. And my next thought was, food. So I threw down the hose, I went into the kitchen, and he had a container of Haagen-Dazs vanilla, you know? And what is it? Some kind of special vanilla. It's really, what is it? Vanilla. Yes, the honey sensation vanilla. And I took a taste of it. No, it was not a taste. The whole front of my mouth went, and I thought, oh, wow, he must have had some kind of food that was laced with something. I must have eaten something, and I'm on drugs. Then I sat down, I went into, the living room, I sat down, and everything was alive. And what I discovered is that, I hadn't taken any drugs. What I discovered is that there is a whole other world sitting underneath of the world that we live in. There is a whole other existence, but it is impossible to access because of all of the chatter, all of the focus on the past or the focus on the future. And I invite you to consider that place where the mind just stops thinking about what's coming next and can actually be present to what's true is where creativity comes from. That is how we source our creativity. And the reason why I know that's true is because that was the week of weird. I call that the week of weird. Because this feeling of being just like totally stoned on the now lasted for me for about a week. I mean, I was going into the supermarket and I was like, to the checkout woman, hi, money. But then all these really strange coincidences started happening. Like, there was a bill that came that I couldn't pay for a credit card, and then the next day a check came in that exact amount. Really weird things, but the best was I said to myself after a couple days of this, okay, I'm going to put this to a test. I'm going to play with this idea that I'm in this creativity zone. And I thought, what would the test be? What would the test be? What would the test be? And I thought, okay, I got it. When I was 16, and I was I worked as a ghoul in a haunted house in Atlantic City. I worked for a week with this woman named Phyllis who came, and she was one of the ghouls, and then I never saw her again. I said, if I run into her, then I will know that there's something going on here with all this creativity, right? I would not lie to you, 2 days later, I sat down in a sushi bar, and I turned and I looked, and at first my brain completely stopped, like, what? And I was like, okay. And I was like, Phyllis? Yes. I worked with you in Atlantic City. She's like, oh, yeah. And then I was so like out of it, I just turned to her and I was like, I created you. She gave me the dirtiest look. But towards the I have one more thing that happened during the week of weird. This car, I was driving a Toyota Tercel it was one of like 5 in America that had this weird problem. Suddenly the electricity would just go out, right? So I am on the freeway. I'm on the Hollywood freeway, and people are speeding, it's just like, testosterone city out there. And I'm like, whoa, just in that zone of the now. And the power goes out. And the steering locks, like the whole thing locks, right? And I'm like, wow, I wonder what's gonna happen next. Well, the car was pointed towards an exit, and it rolled down the exit. And there was a red light at the end of the exit, and I could see cars, and I was like, wow, I wonder what's gonna happen next. Well, by the time I got to the end of the hill, the light had changed green. And I went right through the light, and the car came to a very slow stop, right in front of a service station. So that was my week of weird. Now, in the 1950s, there was a phrase coined called real time, which you may be familiar with. It's defined as the actual time elapsed in the performance of a computation. So what it is, it's like instead of something that happens that's saved data or whatever, it's actually happening now, okay? And I have come to believe that real time, living in real time, not with the focus on what's coming up or what happened before, is actually where we source all creativity. And I really believe, and I can't speak for anybody else, but I believe that if we could practice and strengthen the muscle and the ability to be in real time, there's nothing that we cannot do. Every problem in this world is merely an agreement. We have agreed to settle for things. We have agreed that certain things are more important than others. And I think if we could just, more and more of us, could just get really, really, really here, in real time. War would be a thing of the past. Enslavement, poverty. People will look back and be, poverty? Really? Yeah, read about it. And we can do it. We can do it. Now, I do not want to give you the impression that I now live in real time all the time. Actually, we're always living in real time. You can't escape it. We're always in real time. We can just be deluded about it. We can just put our focus in our imagination, what I call cranium cinema. We can just have our eyes glaze over and watch a movie in our mind about what's coming up in 5 minutes or tomorrow. Or, we can be here now. So I am not living in, I'm not like Eckhart Tolle who woke up one day and I no longer have these thoughts in my mind. That is not me. In fact, yesterday when I agreed to come here, I was like, TED Talks? TEDx? I always wanted to do that. What am I going to do? And I was like, thinking about, oh no. And, I was thinking about different, PowerPoint, and it was crazy. And then yesterday was a day that I had so many appointments. And then last night, my 7-year-old daughter, had come to the office, and my wife was at a board meeting, and I was like, okay, I've got it all planned out. I'm going to take her home, and I'm going to put her to bed early, and then as soon as I'll be up till 4 o'clock in the morning, because I don't want to make a fool of myself. And we get home, and my daughter goes, Daddy, will you give me a drawing lesson? Yes, I will give you a drawing lesson. And as soon as we sat down, and we looked at the paper, and we could hear the scratching of the pencil, and I could see her smile, and we started coloring. I completely forgot about what it is that I was going to talk about, what I needed to do last night. And when we were done drawing, it was so clear to me what I wanted to say to you. That right here and now, you have access to the ability to make anything happen. Anything. You could create Phyllis. Thank you so much.